We're starting.
Hello and welcome to the Global DIY Network and to this, my second interview in the series of Meet the CEOs, where I shall be interviewing the CEOs of the leading companies from around the world from now until next June, when we have the Global DIY Summit. My name is John Herbert, and I'm the General Secretary of EDRA, the European DIY Retail Association, and GIN, the Global Home Improvement Network. Our association has 214 members all over the world, operating in 74 countries with over 33,000 stores, and the members' sales approximately 330 billion euro. I would now like to welcome all our EDRA-GIN members from all over the world who are following this webinar today. It's 6 o'clock in the morning in Atlanta. People are wondering who's going to be the next president, and people are going to bed in Australia, or should be anyway. It's 10 o'clock at night there. I would also like to welcome the members of our partner association, the HEMA, the Home Improvement Manufacturers Association, which was formerly FEDMA. I would also like to welcome the delegates and the sponsors of the Global DIY Summit that is going to take place in Copenhagen next year. Altogether, 600 people have registered for this event. So before we start the interview, I would just like to say that 2 weeks ago, we interviewed Mr. Sergio Giroldi, the group CEO of OBI, the largest DIY chain in Germany and the 8th in the world. And he was diagnosed with COVID-19 just the evening before the interview. Well, it's now 2 weeks has gone by, and I'm pleased to tell you that Mr. Giroldi as well. I contacted their office. They told me, "Er arbeitet wie eine Löwe," which means, if you translate it, he's working extremely hard again, which obviously is a very good sign. So now I would like to introduce you to the CEO of Cashbuild, which is one of the largest home improvement companies in South Africa. But before I do so, I would just like to say that last year, EDRA and GIN, we held a study tour to South Africa. It was amazing, and it was organized by Werner, Jager, who is going to be our partner today. And three things I think about it. First of all, we were really very, very pleased to see the high standards of retailing that we found in South Africa and can compare with anything else in the world. The second thing is, what a wonderful country South Africa is. We had the pleasure of going on a short safari and seeing the animals in their natural reserve. And the third thing, which impressed us all, was how friendly and how happy the people seemed to be in South Africa. So, having said that, I would now like to pass you over to Werner Jager, and he will tell us a little about Cashbuild before we start the interview. Werner.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. Cashbuild is a humble company. We operate in 7 countries throughout Southern Africa. And as we sit here today, we've got 318 stores, around about 6,300 associates working for the group, and trading through 2 different brands, the one being the Cashbuild brand, and then we also have a brand called P&L Hardware that we trade through. So our revenue for the year 2019 was in excess of about 600 million euros, if I translate it. That figure changes quite regularly with the rand being very weak to the euro. But that said, so maybe just a bit of background, John, if I don't want to take all the time. But Cashbuild started in 1978 actually as a wholesaler to provide building materials to lower income groups in South Africa. And the business grew steadily. In 1986, the business was listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, where it's still listed today. And yeah, so the business has grown over that time. And in 1995, we took the decision. I wasn't part of it, but the decision was taken to change Cashbuild from a wholesaler into a retailer, and that changed a lot of things into the business that we are today. So that's a short background on Cashbuild, John.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Werner, for this introduction. So obviously the very first question is this dreadful global pandemic that is affecting almost every country in the world today. So how is it affecting your business in South Africa?
So John, our business were quite heavily affected. We went into a formal or a hard lockdown in end of March, and in essence for 5 weeks we were not allowed to trade. Then we were allowed after that to trade as a essential service provider, and as from 1 May we actually traded with the general public again, being able to sell all the products that we have on offer. And we've been surprised and gladly surprised about the good demand for products since the lockdown. If you look at our May results, we were up 12% on the prior year. In June, we were up 13% on the prior year. And then in the period July to September, we were actually up 22% on the prior year. So we've seen some amazing numbers coming through. The majority of our income is from South Africa. So some of the other countries like Malawi and Zambia did not have lockdowns, but there's only 5 stores trading in those countries. So in general, the other countries followed very similar rules than what we saw in South Africa.
Yes, we've had probably the same sort of pattern throughout the world with increased sales through this pandemic. So what is the situation now in South Africa? We in Europe are having a tremendous second surge in infections that's creating really havoc and chaos here in Europe. What stage are you at in South Africa at the moment?
So John, we've seen quite a reduction in our cases. We've been between 1,000 and 2,000 new cases a day, probably for the last month. Yesterday it dropped to 700 odd new cases, but again, we've only had a first spike, so we are watching carefully what's happening in Europe and the rest of the world, and most of the local virologists and people are saying that we should expect a second wave towards December this year. So we're all watching with bated breath to see what's going on.
So how are you protecting your associates and your customers in the stores?
So we've been following very strict rules, mostly also implemented by our government. But there's I'm not going to go through all of them, but the basics in terms of compulsory wearing of masks in store, the hand sanitizers at the entrance of the store. There's temperature scanning for customers. We limit the number of customers in a store at any point in time, so there's a control in place for that. And then general social distancing inside the store, queues at point of sale, people ensuring the social distancing happens from that perspective. From our support center, similar rules. You can't enter the entrance gate without being temperature scanned and filling out a questionnaire, a risk questionnaire. And then there's also sanitizing facilities, and wearing of masks are compulsory as well.
What about the stores? Do you check the temperature of the people going in the stores?
Yes, we have somebody at the entrance that scans with the handheld, just check temperatures as people come into stores.
Like the kid who like a little gun is, and they hold it up and it tells the temperature.
Yeah, it's fairly through all the retail businesses in South Africa. It's standard practice now that you temperature scan everywhere you go to.
That's really good. Yeah. Oh wow, that's yeah. So really, the pattern of your sales and what you're telling me is very similar to probably all over the world, really. But there's also been a tremendous surge in online sales. Do you do online business at all?
We do have an online offering. Our online offering is just limited to the Gauteng province in South Africa at the moment. We've seen, I can sit here and tell you the exact number of sales increase from before lockdown to during lockdown period was in the region of 300%, but it is often extremely low base. So I think it's more the trend that we're seeing, that there's more inquiries and more people logging on, and we are currently busy to actually make it available firstly throughout South Africa and then also in the neighboring countries. So we are quite investing some time and money in getting that sorted out.
I think all the medium-sized companies throughout the world are really at the same stage as you are. The bigger companies, of course, like the Home Depot or Lowe's, or here in Europe, like Hornbach or B&Q, they're obviously doing very, very good sales in online. But the main boom has been the click and collect. This has really taken off because people can order it and they can go and collect it. They've had curbside. We've had the webinars where CEOs have been talking about their curbside collection. Have you been doing this too?
So no, we have not been doing that because of our limited offer on the online side. We did not offer click and collect. Traditionally, our business have been doing about 30% of our sales have always been delivered to customers, even though it's not online sales. And that seems to be still the trend in terms of that. Having said all of that, the developments we're doing will include the click and collect offer for our customers.
But on the other side, your stores are an average, I think, about 1,200 square meters. So they're smaller stores. I've never personally, and I know the people on the study tour also said that, I've never seen a store so neat, so clear in its concept that you can transfer it anywhere. And I think the video film of Cashbuild, which we showed the people following this webinar now before we started, really clearly showed that. So people coming, it's very convenient to pull up at the front door, just go in. You're only 1,200 square meters, so you can quickly collect it, stay safe, get it in your car, and probably drive away. Yeah. What about your associates? Do they have any problem with coming to work? Have you had people who say, I'm not terribly well, or my partner is not very well and I can't come to work? Have you had that at all?
John, I must say I was surprised and I probably shouldn't have been, but the commitment of the associates have been absolutely amazing during this time. We in fact once or twice had to say to people, but you can't come into work because you've been exposed or your partner has been exposed. So there's been an extreme positive attitude from most of the associates. Unfortunately, to date, we've had about 90 positive cases in our stores and in our support center. So, so the protocol would be in every case is to close the store down immediately. We get the professional team in to deep sanitize and clean the store. And then the people are put into self-isolation for 10 days. And then staff and associates from other stores actually come and run the store from the next day on with skeleton staff. And again, it's been exceptionally well supported by the associates. The other interesting thing is the measures in terms of social distancing and masks. We haven't had any cross-contamination inside a store. It's been single incidences and in all the stores. So it just shows that the social distancing and all the precautions is having its effect.
And so the people, if a person is diagnosed in a store, how long is the store closed? How long do you need it to get it back into working again?
John, in the stores that's in the bigger metropoles in South Africa, it's fairly quick. So normally the next morning we trade again, but in the bit more far lying areas, it normally takes you a day or so to organize the staff to go into the area and to open again. So the maximum time it took us was one store was closed for 3 days, and most of them opened the very next day again after deep cleaning.
Yes, I was very pleased to say that in South Africa, the home improvement stores are viewed as essential retail. So if they close down the other shops, does that really mean that the DIY can remain open then in future, do you think? Depending on the lockdown situation, probably.
Yeah, it depends. Our country has adopted sort of 5 levels of lockdown. Currently, we're on level 1 lockdown, with 5 being the strictest rules. And in terms of level 5, we're not allowed to trade. Only from level 4 downwards, we're allowed to trade. But we don't believe that we'll ever have to go back to level 5. And that we should be able to trade all through, even if we do get stricter lockdown rules from a second wave.
Yes, I mentioned this in my last interview. I've been very impressed with home improvement stores from around the world. I've seen and heard of how exemplary they've reacted to this pandemic and how safe I feel going into a home improvement store. So I think we played a very good role there. And I think the sharing of the information between different countries and different people obviously helped to educate towards that feeling all in all. So going forward, Jan, yeah. Oh yeah, the other thing I was going to ask you, how do you feel that the homes are perceived within this lockdown? Do you think we've gained ground, that people think, has it changed the perception of the home improvement stores in South Africa, do you feel?
I definitely think so. We've just in listening and reading local papers and how people have reestablished or regained the value of their homes, or realized now the value of your home and your property. And suddenly there's a renewed vigor to improve it and to look after it and do maintenance. So it's very encouraging. The number of, we measure the number of feet coming into the store, and that's also grown in the deep 20%. So it tells you that there's more people coming, and I think we've all done a good job in terms of people, like you say, people feeling safe with all the precautions that's been taken, and being able to serve customers in an environment that they feel safe in.
Yes, certainly my impression throughout the world and the feedback we've been getting from everywhere is that our home improvement has really profited by it. People have rediscovered their home. They go to the stores, they feel safe, they can get the things. We've reacted very, very well in this situation. So in all, I think it's been a good situation. So how do you see the future with the pandemic yourself? Are you optimistic, or how do you feel about it?
I was hoping that the time will run out before you ask me that question, but it's a difficult one to answer, John. But I'm not a specialist on the area, but from what I read and what I see and listen to webinars, all the guys are talking about it requires a third wave before we can really say it's under control. And so I'm thinking that next year we'll still feel some brunt of the pandemic. Certainly in our planning and thinking, we're thinking that along that lines. Obviously, the vaccine would change things around quite a bit. But I don't think we're going to see the normal that we knew before the pandemic will ever be back in terms of that. So I think there's quite a few things that will change, and working conditions and the way we go about things has changed forever.
Yes, we think, or I think, that this second spike will really tell people and teach people that we really have to follow the rules, keep the distance and everything, and probably, maybe, hopefully, in the beginning of the year, middle of the year, it gets better. I mean, it must get better. We've got the Global DIY Summit coming off in June, of course, 1,000 people coming from 50 countries. So let's only hope that it's going to be in the wonderful country, Denmark, in Copenhagen. So we're very much looking forward to that. Okay, let us leave the pandemic behind us, for the moment anyway, and talk about something else, which is, I think, again, that's very impressed me, is what we're doing on corporate social responsibility within our organizations. And I've always been impressed with the integrity and the depth, particularly the younger people, who I think really care about the world we live in today and how it's going to be tomorrow than the people that in my active generation. So what is Cashbuild and what is the situation in South Africa towards corporate social responsibility, global warming, and all the other things, the issues concerning the environment?
John, as an opening comment, probably not at the level that it should be, but in our organization, we manage and report on our corporate social or our sustainability, if you talk about the broader aspects, through the 6 capitals that's contained in the international integrated reporting framework. You know, it talks about financial capital, human capital, intellectual capital, natural capital, and manufactured, and these type of things. So we've got plans and initiatives running in all of these different areas, and the reason why we've chosen it is to make sure that we focus the correct amount of attention to those aspects that has got the biggest impact on our business. You know, in terms of the natural capital side, a lot of our stores are not big electricity users, but all of our efforts are in reducing water usage, reducing electricity usage, making our wastage as little as possible, and then also recycling and making sure that we waste as little as possible. And there's a lot of effort going on about it. It's probably a topic that one can spend a whole day on in terms of all the different aspects from the communities we look after, from all of these things that we go into.
Well, certainly when we were visiting you on the study tour, we got a feeling of the awareness of it all, yeah? That there was aware. What I really liked about your stores, and I'd never seen that before, when I stood in front of your store, when I went on my own before we met, I saw that you have your values, I think you called them the Cashbuild ethics that you had on your door, and I'll just read them through because I think I was so impressed. And they're on the door. Are they on the door in every, or at the entrance of every store?
Yes, they appear in each of our stores. You'll find our values.
Yeah, can I just go through them? May I just do that for the people? On the door, we follow through to be so successful. We strive to do it right first time, every time. We deliver exceptional service and retail customer satisfaction. We take pride in what we do and show respect and honesty in all our dealings. We empower, recognize, and reward our people. And we manage and improve our business through the Cashbuild way. And I got the feeling when I went in the stores, I think I told you, they didn't know who I was, but they soon stopped me and asked me who I was. And they all seemed to be very, very happy. And when we visited you outside, they all sang the Cashbuild song. And this could never happen in Germany, by the way. I could never imagine the German people singing a hornback song or an obi song in front of the store. But they did it with such passion, and they were smiling, and they were so happy, and that was so very, very nice to see. So that was very, very good to experience.
Yeah.
For anybody, for all the people watching, just before you answer, if you want to ask Werner any questions, please let us know. We've got Oliver here in the room. He takes the questions, pass them to me, and then we can ask the questions. So anybody following this webinar, please do so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So John, the Cashbuild song has been a tradition in our business, and it's sort of reserved for special visitors, or for when we open a new store or we refurbish a store. Then the staff will actually practice for a week or 3, and they actually sing it in the morning when you open the store with a lot of pride. And it's become the anthem of the business, and it's something. It's linked into our policies and procedures, the Cashbuild way. So it reminds people of our values and what we stand for.
Yeah, and the people, and it's always astonished me going to a country where the people are not very perhaps so well off as they are here in Europe, and yet they smile and they seem to be so happy. And then I come back to Europe and I don't see the same smiling faces. So that was very, very nice to see. But we have just one question here from Werner Sternert, is from the Dana. I'll put my glasses on, sorry. Yeah. will people continue to appreciate their homes in the future more than they do in the past, do you think, with this coronavirus?
I do think so, John. You know, people, because they spend so much time at home during lockdown and during this period, you know, you just realized again, people tended to forget about it a bit, and I think it's reminded everybody. So I believe, you know, I was fortunate to travel a bit in the parts of the country in last week, and the amount of activity of new buildings and people adding rooms and improving their houses was just amazing. To see that this boom that's happening, and I mean that's good to see for the future.
Yeah, well, I can tell that with mine, because we're on lockdown. I don't always work in the office. I work from my home office, and when I'm in my home office, my wife grabs me and I've got to do something. I don't think our terrace has ever looked as nice. I don't think our house has ever been so up to scratch as it is today, but I'm still doing my work. But of course, I'm not doing the same sort of journey. So from that point of view, it's been a good experience. Yeah. Yeah. There was a question I was going to ask about your people. Is there a lot of fluctuation with your people within the stores? Do you get a...
We normally get in the region of about a 15% staff turnover per year. It's through the lockdown period and through this pandemic, we've seen that drop down to around 10%, and you know, which is a typical sign of there's obviously not as much work available for people to resign and take on new positions, because there's a lot of companies that's in financial stress and actually retrenching people and not necessarily rehiring or hiring people. So that's an expected occurrence that we've seen. But we've seen in the higher ranks in the business, the store managers and our regional managers, there's much more stability in those ranks, that you see the turnover more at the lower ranks, where it's more easily interchangeable.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions here which I'd like to ask you. How do you see what about the online business? Do you have an Amazon or anybody like Amazon in South Africa at the moment?
We do have a company called Takealot that is basically similar to an Amazon, and they are exceptionally good in their service, and they're not big in the DIY trade yet, but certainly they do supply some of the products that we sell. So it is by definition becoming a competitor or a threat in South Africa. You know, for us, South Africa on the DIY side is not big in the online sales yet. But when you think about the category, it lends itself perfectly for online sales, because window frames, door frames have all got industry standard codes. Everything is standardized, so it's things you don't need to feel and touch to be able to purchase them. You know, if you go online and you purchase them, you know what you're going to be getting. So, but the other phenomena is in our market specifically is by far the majority of people access the internet via their mobile devices only. They don't have access to laptops or desktop computers, and so our whole effort is focused around actually simplifying it for people to actually transact with us on their mobile phone through chat commerce and things like that. So that's where a lot of our efforts is going into at the moment.
Yeah, here in Europe, as you probably know, that some companies are attaining up to 20% of sales now on online, and it's still growing very rapidly. Certainly this will come, I think, one day to South Africa. So as you say, it's not really started yet. So really physical stores and the space and everything is really not an issue in South Africa, because the margin of sales of online are so low.
Yeah. So our approach is in terms of how we're developing is that our stores will become the fulfillment center for the online sales as well. So that you know, we don't have our model is of such a nature that we don't have centralized warehousing. All our stock is in stores, and you know, so it just makes sense for us that if you want to send an online sale in a remote area, the place to fulfill it from is from the local store, and
Yes.
that's how we've developed our model that we will go live with early next year.
Okay. Talking about products, what percentage of products come from the home, from South Africa, and what percentage do you import approximately?
So we don't import anything ourselves, but we buy from import agents. So 13% of our products gets imported. That's not available in South Africa, but our approach is buy local and support local manufacturing and local supply. You know, a big portion of our business is heavy structural type building materials, cement, bricks, timber, things that doesn't necessarily travel that well. So by getting them local does make a lot of sense for our business.
Okay. I have another question just come in. So I've got from Terry Coleman, a very dear friend of ours. Cashbuild is a pioneer. What are the learnings from the international community? So for us, you know, it sort of links into you know, our association with Jin and what we've learned over the years. We were good at lots of things, but we've refined as many things by looking at international stores and store visits every year with the conference, that we were able to just improve a bit more on certain things. The basics has always been there, but we've certainly learned a lot of merchandising things from visiting, and you know, things we've been battling with, and then suddenly you walk into a store and you see, but eureka, there's the answer. And so that's where the international side of it is quite interesting for us, and to make sure that we stay abreast of the new products that's coming out, and things that's available for us, not to stay behind and rest on our laurels. Yeah. The vision, or the vision of our organization is to improve the level of the quality of home improvement retailing throughout the world, through the information, through statistics, through the sharing of studies, through the sharing of best practices, organizing store tours, company visits, and you've also mentioned this study tour that we do. And of course, the jewel in the crown is our networking event, the Global DIY Summit, attended by so many people. So do you feel you've gained from you've gained obviously from this experience, and how do you feel about the experience within the network itself?
Yeah, it was funny enough. You know, we were approached by Regis many years ago, and we were not keen to join the organization because we really didn't see the value. And then eventually we decided to attend the Rome conference, and we were really surprised by the level of interaction and the openness of sharing of information, and it really showed us the value of the networking opportunities. I think that's really good. You know, we've been able to use the organization to ask questions that we were finding difficulty to get answers on, and people shared, and it was amazing how openly people were sharing information and really tried to help you. You know, we also, you know, when my financial director was traveling in Europe, you know, your office assisted in setting up meetings with the right people so that he can focus on back office things that he wanted to find out, and not necessarily that's in store. And it's something you would never be able to do if you just walked in from the street or tried to go into a store and ask these questions.
Yeah, and I think particularly now, if you're thinking of going online, there is companies I know like yourself in the same structure doing it, who are doing very well online, and I'm sure they would be able to welcome you, and you could go and spend a couple of days there and learning about what they're doing. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Got another question just come in, so let me have a read. Yeah. From Dr. Bruce, my dear friend. Many companies realize how trendy we are. Do you see new competition coming up in South Africa? And if so, from where?
So for us in South Africa, we mentioned that the Takealot, the online threat that's becoming more and more. Our market is very fragmented, so we see some very good individual stores and especially family-owned stores that is doing very well. You were on the study tour exposed to one of the very best family-owned companies, yeah. And so we're seeing that the competition is coming from there. We recently had the entrance of Leroy Merlin into South Africa, which certainly has changed the landscape quite a bit in terms of introducing South Africa to quite a different way of doing a lot of things. And it certainly, I think it's up the game in the DIY side in South Africa. So what you saw last year was really already much improved than what we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yes, I know in all my 434 travels while I've been doing this job, what I've always thought about, never ever underestimate. And I think your coming to South Africa was a particular example to see the really high standard of this family business Chamberlain. And then the two groups who were in, Build It and Buco, yeah, and then seeing your concept. And we like the Builders Warehouse, who I've never seen a better presentation towards online than I saw in Builders Warehouse. So you can learn everywhere. And I find, my experience is, the people who run a successful operation, and I won't mention any names because that probably would be unfair, but they're the ones who are really looking everywhere for ideas. And you get some of the companies that don't look anywhere, and they seem to be standing still. So to me, the most successful companies are those that look at other companies and see what they're doing.
And if I may add, John, and also share some of the lessons, not just keep everything to themselves. I find that also as a culture of a successful organization, they don't mind sharing.
Yes, indeed. We find, and I've been pleasantly surprised in the time I've been doing this job, how people are willing to share information. We have a very strict regulation when there's a competitive issue, but if there's not a competitive issue, there is no barriers and people really help. And I think this has really brought the association forward. We have another question from King Tian. He was one of the first on today, by the way. How can we work with Cashbuild via their import agents? So you've got a person who is a supplier, wants to sell to Cashbuild. How can he do it?
Yeah, so John, that's it is something that we had in the past. We had an import arm, but we were no good at it. We ended up being our own worst supplier, and we took the strategic decision that where is our core competency as a business, and that is in selling building material and associated products to retailers. So we, part of our philosophy and the ethos of the business is to keep things simple. And we would rather work with local people that's got the expertise. And I'll share, maybe it's silly examples, but we imported some tape measures from overseas, and it arrived here, and everything started at 10 instead of 0. You have to dump the whole container. So we just don't have that infrastructure. Having said that, we've recently announced an acquisition that we're still busy finalizing, and part of that business has actually got importing businesses inside the group, and which will probably open up that discussion again and open up opportunities to do more direct sourcing.
That could open the doors, really. Yeah. Yeah. So one question which I always ask at coming to the end of it, going back to the pandemic, what have you learned from this pandemic?
John, I'll summarize it in a few lines. So I already said the first thing is keeping it simple is very important in the bigger scheme of things. I've learned that the value of a very strong team with a shared culture and a shared vision is not negotiable. It is important in these tough times. And then something that we always take for granted is being well prepared for something, planning. I saw during this time the fact that we were well planned. We had a COVID crisis committee set up before we had our lockdown, which really governed and all our activities during that time. So be well prepared. That's halfway there if you're well prepared for things. The other thing that we saw is people tend to sit around a bit and wait for things to get better or for the new normal or the normal to return. And what I've learned is and seen through my team is you can't sit around. You must be proactive and go out there and live with the circumstances that you have. Be adaptable in terms of that. And then probably last but not least, it just reiterated the fact that if you've got a proper strategy that you've worked on, is you must stick to it. You mustn't get sidetracked. And even though things around you will get a bit noisy, focus on your strategy and deliver your strategy all the time.
You've been now at Cashbuild for 16 years, 8 years you've been the CEO. So what has been the major challenge in this time? Is it the pandemic, or what has been the most major challenge you've had?
So yeah, the pandemic makes some of the other challenges look meek and mild at the moment. But no, I mean, for me, the biggest challenge was having been in the business for 8 years before I became CEO, was to change the culture of our organization. We had a very, I'm trying to find the right word, but a very strict controlled business in people were not allowed to go out of the box and to take accountability. It was very regulated, let's call it that. So I knew that in terms of us to be able to grow the business, I had to change that culture to be more accountable and for people to take accountability for their own actions. Some people misconstrued it as a lack of discipline and that you can do what you wanted to do. So it was a big challenge. But I think now that we went through this lockdown period and pandemic, the fact that the people and this culture is well entrenched made working from home much easier for everybody. They took accountability for their own tasks. If I tell you I had to look over anybody's shoulder during this time, I would lie to you, because everybody knew what they had to do and they were proactive in doing that. So I think that challenge that I faced many years ago, actually the benefits we saw during this lockdown period.
Yeah. I think the worry I think most people have got with this pandemic and this total borrowing and all the money, what is going to happen to the economic situation? Therefore, I'm very pleased to say next Monday, we've got Eric Kalish, who is going to speak to us all from Deloitte. He's the Chief Global Advisor. He is absolutely brilliant. And I think anybody watching today, do watch Eric Kalish next week. Is it Monday or Tuesday? Yeah, it is on Tuesday. So if you look at our DIY Global Network, well, I think we're now coming to the end, Ben. It's been very interesting interview. And of course, we know each other very well. I've been to see you 2 or 3 times in South Africa and had a wonderful time. So before I close, is there any last comments you would like to make at all?
John, I think from my side, it would be wrong if I don't thank your office for organizing all these webinars during the lockdown period and information sharing sessions. It was very reassuring for me as a CEO, and I think for a lot of my colleagues as well, that we could speak and hear what other companies are facing the same problems, they're having the same issues, and to hear what they were doing about these issues. And you knew you took the right decisions, but it was always reassuring to just be able to touch base and to check what other people are also doing, and not to feel you struggling on your own with this. So thank you. I think it's been very informative and good to keep that communication open.
Okay, well, that's a very, very good final note. I think it's it really shows that in a crisis, there's so much innovation and coming out. We've seen that with the companies. I think we've also proved that here. So yeah, so we're now coming to the end of this interview. It's been a huge pleasure to speak to you again, to see you again. I'd much prefer to do it physically and be there in South Africa doing so. And I'd like to tell all the people following this webinar that our next CEO's interviews will be on the 2nd of December with the Glenrondane, who is the #1 company, a very dynamic company in Ireland. So Werner, thank you very much indeed. It's nice to see you at in your home, and we look forward to meeting you again physically. Thank you for taking part on behalf of all of us. Thank you very much, and have a good day. And now we'll probably find out who's going to be the next president of the US.
Thank you, John. Thanks for
Okay.
interviewing me. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.